Imagine a solution so bold it could reshape the fate of our planet or plunge us into a risky new era. That's the promise and the peril of climate engineering in the Arctic and Antarctic, according to a chorus of scientists raising urgent red flags. Recently, more than 40 leading polar researchers have sounded an alarm. Trying to cool the Earth by artificially manipulating the polar regions could backfire spectacularly. Their warning is clear and dramatic. Such ventures are not just fraught with scientific uncertainty, but they might also divert humanity from the hard, essential work of ending our reliance on fossil fuels. So, what exactly are these polar geoengineering ideas? Unlike traditional efforts to cut carbon emissions, these strategies aim to fight global warming in unconventional ways. For example, by thickening sea ice or spraying reflective materials into the atmosphere to bounce sunlight away. The logic seems simple. If we can't convince the world to reduce emissions fast enough, maybe, just maybe, we can find a shortcut to cool things down. But here's where it gets controversial. Despite their appeal as potential emergency measures, polar geoengineering techniques come with a host of unresolved problems. The authors of the latest review, published in the journal Frontiers in Science, painstakingly evaluated 5 of the most talked-about ideas and found them all failing basic tests of practicality and safety. Take, for instance, the suggestion to inject tiny reflective aerosol particles high above the Earth. While conspiracy theories have latched onto this concept, think bizarre claims about airplane contrails, real scientific concerns are far more credible and pressing. How might such actions disrupt weather systems across continents? And, equally important, who gets the authority to decide whether or not to deploy these risky techniques? In a region as geopolitically sensitive as the Arctic or Antarctic, that's a question with no simple answer. Dr. Valerie Masson-Delmotte, an influential climate expert, warns that if a single country unilaterally opted for geoengineering against others' wishes, it could inflame international tensions and create new political flashpoints in already fragile polar areas. Would it be worth the risk of worsening global relations for a solution that may not even work? Another much-debated concept involves pumping seawater over the Arctic ice in winter, the hope being to artificially bulk up the ice and help it better survive summer melts. But the scale and cost of such a scheme is staggering. Estimates suggest that simply covering 10% of the Arctic ice sheet would require about 10 million large seawater pumps. Would that even be logistically feasible, let alone environmentally smart? And this is the part most people miss. These geoengineering schemes could lull society into a false sense of progress. Professor Martin Siegert, who led the review, cautions that promoting flashy, unproven remedies may distract governments and the public from tackling the root problem, the burning of fossil fuels. After all, if it seems like a technological fix is just around the corner, will there still be the same global will to embrace genuine, challenging emissions reductions? Some experts, such as Dr. Sean Fitzgerald of Cambridge's Centre for Climate Repair, argue that research into these technologies should continue, if only to better understand their true pros and cons. Fitzgerald, himself involved in several related projects, insists that any geoengineering would only ever supplement, not replace, urgent emission cuts. He freely admits that the majority of current proposals might ultimately prove misguided, or even bonkers. Yet, he argues, only by exploring them in depth can we avoid being caught off guard by future climate emergencies. Controversially, the UK government has recently funded nearly £60 million in research on such polar interventions, even while publicly stating it has no intention of using them. Is this wise preparation, or a dangerous diversion of resources? In their sharp assessment, the scientists suggest that such funds would be far better spent on accelerating decarbonization and expanding fundamental polar research. Some basic truths are obvious, Siegert concludes, and don't require endless debate or investment to recognize that certain ideas just aren't plausible. What do you think? Should we pursue polar geoengineering as a potential climate lifeline? Or is it a costly distraction from the need to curb fossil fuel use? Could these risky experiments bring unintended environmental chaos? Or could they buy us precious time to address emissions? Share your views. Where do you stand on this controversial climate debate?